Okay, it's just a quick video to show how to set up a Isoline wire render over top of a mesh that you'd be subdividing. So this would be useful if you're doing a demo reel and you want to show your low poly edge work on top of a subdivided mesh for your demo reel. So it could be characters, models, whatever. I'm just using a torus knot for the example to make it quicker. So this torus knot, I have it set up kind of low poly, but I'm gonna open up the material editor. I'm just using this compact one, and I'm gonna create a new material. Okay, this is set up for Arnold. I'm using Arnold for this specifically, and I'll just use a standard surface. There's other ways you could set this shader up, but I'm gonna use the standard surface. I'm gonna set my specular to 0, and I'm gonna put a map in the map slot for color. And up here, I'm just going to search for wireframe, and you'll see this is specific to Max 2021 right now. I'm using this wireframe OSL, which is newer. So I'm going to click OK. And if I just throw this on here, I'm just going to replace that material. Okay, so I'm just going to throw that on there and hit Shift Q to render. That's an old render that popped up there. So this is what happens by default. So you need to add a UVW map modifier up here. Okay, so this render specifically is for the edge. So I'm adding a UVW map and switching it to face. And when I hit render, it works fine. So if I want to subdivide this, I'm going to use Turbo Smooth because Turbo Smooth yields better results with this. So if I turn on Turbo Smooth, I can pump this up to 2 iterations or whatever. If I hit Shift Q, the UVW map underneath is face mapping the edges to the low poly mesh, but it's still wrapping it around our subdivided mesh. Okay, so I'll just show a couple things with this that I found. If you have the UVW map on top of Turbo Smooth, and I just render it like this, it'll render the subdivided edges, so it has to be under it. If I have this like this and I turn on Isoline display expecting it to render like this, it renders like this. Okay, so the only correct way to set this up at this point, because you can have that on, but UVW map has to be under Turbo Smooth. So these would be at the top of the stack on your model. Okay, so that's easy to set up at this point, but the thing is I want to take this on a separate layer and overlay it on top of my textured model for a spin or rotation. So I'll show how to combine this in Photoshop, but right now if I turn on display alpha channel, you can see the background. It's going to mask out this whole thing, but I want it to mask between the edges as well. So I'll set up another material for that. So I'm going to use a blend, and I'm going to blend 2 materials and mask them using the edges. So I'll discard the old one. So first of all, I'm going to drag these, or this one here, down to here. Okay, so I'll set up this first material last, because I'm going to explain what to put in there. Material 2 will just be our wire shader that we set up. I'll make it an instance, and then I'll go in here and up to the parent, and I'll just right click and copy the map out and use that as the mask. Okay, so I'm going to mask that here. You can paste it as an instance, and then that way you can change these by just changing it up here. You should name your materials, but anyways, I'm going to go into, so I'll go into material 1, and I'll change this to a Arnold matte material. This is going to let me matte out everything in the background. So if I put a matte up here, I'm going to discard the old material. I'll go up. So now I have a matte, the wire shader, and then the wire map masking it out. And if I apply this and hit render, okay, same render, but if I turn on the alpha channel, it masks the background out. Okay, so if I save this out as a PNG, I can change the color of the edges and all that stuff, but I'll just quickly save this out. I'll just drop it somewhere where I can find it real quick. Make sure, of course, when you save your PNG, the alpha channel is turned on. And then I'll just do another render with this one here. I'll just change the color. So this could be your textured character or something if you do your main render. And obviously I would have the UV map turned off at least for the face mapping part. So I'll show how to overlay the edge render on top of this polished render. And for this, you could do this in Premiere or whatever editing software. I'm just going to do this in Photoshop, and it's going to be basically the same thing. So I'll save this as a PNG as well. If I want to change the background in the other program, keep the alpha on. And then in Photoshop, I'll just bring the color one in first. So I've got that torus and I've got the edge for the torus, which I'll open. So you can see here's our color one and here's the other one. And I could just drag this over and then I can mess around with it in here as well. So if you're in Premiere or whatever, I could change the colors back in 3ds Max, or you can make adjustments and stuff here. I could brighten this up. If you want a darker line, you could knock the brightness right out, play with the contrast and make it really dark, change the colors, all that stuff. So if I have a rotation in Premiere, I can just put them together like this as well. Okay, so that's a short video. I'm just going to end that one there. I hope that helps someone else out.